Let's learn about this 1880s medicine bottle on this episode of Antique Bottle Stories. So on this old medicine bottle, it says Dr.DeWitt's Cough and Consumption Cure, and then it says W.J. Parker and Company, Baltimore, Maryland. Well, when I first started my research, I found that neither one of these names made it into any history books. I googled both names and the name of the medicine, and nothing comes up. It wasn't until I started looking in the newspapers that I found anything. I found this particular medicine in a 3-year time frame. It pops up in 1887, 88, and 89. And all the ads say the same thing. It says, composed of horehound, tar, wild cherry, and other pure drugs. Best expectorant in use. Cures consumption in its early stage. Also coughs, colds, sore throat, hoarseness, whooping cough, and it goes on and on. Comes in a 25-cent and $1 bottle. Mine's probably the 25-cent bottle. It says perfectly safe for children. And W.J. Parker is listed on all these ads. So I started with W.J. Parker first because I had a name and a place. So I found that he was born in 1837 in Virginia, and he was in the Civil War in his 20s for about 7 months. It says deserted here. Well, here's a little ad that he put in a paper. It says a lost pocketbook containing $40 or $50 and a check that he had written to someone. I had to think for a minute because in 2021 a pocketbook is a woman's purse, but he's obviously talking about his wallet. But then I thought about it for a minute. The word pocketbook actually makes more sense for a wallet than for a purse, because if you think about it, it fits in your pocket and it opens like a book. A purse doesn't do that. Anyways, a little ADD moment there. Let's continue. So I don't see that William Parker starts his company until 1877. He goes into business with a Mr. Hertel and a Mr. Atkins. There was a notice in the paper earlier this year to confirm that these three are partners. It also mentions 4 South Howard Street in Baltimore, which is here. In 1880, we see he's looking for some workers, an experienced drug packer. In 1882, we see a fire happened at his business and the one next door, who apparently is a dealer of tobacco. This one's interesting. Well, the top part says that Sammy's medicine is being sold by these retailers and Parker is one of them. That's not really the interesting part. The bottom part talks about in Florida, land can be obtained for $1.25 an acre. I live in Florida and I know that my area was settled by a few people who came here on those similar terms. They built lots of orange groves. Anyways, stay focused, guys. In 1886, we, the undersigned, have formed this co-partnership under the name Engler, Kite and Company to continue the wholesale drug business at the old stand of W.J. Parker and Company. It says at 33 Howard Street. Then underneath it says Parker sold his stock of drugs to them. So it seems like that's it then, right? Well, the next time we see him, he's lost his stinking money again. This time it's $60, Mr. Butterfingers. But look, it says to return it to W.J. Parker and Company, 7 Howard Street. Okay, so I gather from this information that he started, I guess, at 33 Howard and then he moved to this corner lot. But I'm a little confused why he sold his stock of drugs to that guy if he was still in business. Anyways, at this point he's been in business for about 10 years now. The following year we see that a Maria Hubbard, a colored woman, 20 years old, a domestic in the family of W.J. Parker, died from burns received from her clothing catching on fire from a stove. It says that another woman was burned trying to put out the flames on Mrs. Hubbard. Here's a look at his household in 1900. He's 60 now. He's got his wife, Margaret, and 4 kids still living with him. There's a relative there, and a servant named Annie. Also in 1900, it says in Dover, Delaware, that a certificate of incorporation was filed for the W.J. Parker Company of Baltimore, Maryland, which manufactures medicines. In the 1905 directory, I thought it was interesting to point out that William J. Jr. now shows up, and there's a few more William J. Parkers floating around in the city as well. So I don't know if this is our William Parker, But his son Elton was 6 years old when he coughed up a carpet tack that he had swallowed back when he was 3. He had it embedded near his lung for 3 years. They say it's one of the strangest medical cases on record. In 1910, another fire. It says the fire started in the cellar of the building, and the first few floors was a stationery company, and then Parker's is the top 3 floors, and there was about $1,000 worth of damage there. The tobacco guy next door wasn't damaged by fire, but he was soaked with water. So fast forward, 11 years later, he's still there. Now he's looking for a salesman. Fast forward again, in 1920, here's his household. His 3 daughters are living at home. One of them is married with a kid, and her husband and kid are living there too. And this was cool. It's an ad for a local heater company using a picture of Parker's house and his testimony for their ad. So that's what Parker's house looked like. In 1930, he's 92 now, and his 3 daughters are still living there, and the one that was married, she's a widow now, with 2 kids. And we see that William Jr. is now in the business with his dad. He's in his 40s now. I don't know how long he's been working with his dad. In 1933, William Parker Sr. died in his 95th year. Not bad at all. It says he's been in business for 53 years. It says he'd been ill for nearly 2 years. Now 5 years later, his son died at the age of 51. He had a quick illness of 2 weeks. And that's the end of the story for this company. So he started this company in 1877, all the way till 1938. And I found one online, and this looks like it could be a screw top there. It's got the same formula as the cough and consumption cure. Okay, so let's move on to Dr. DeWitt. John Wilson DeWitt was born in 1841, so he's right about the same age as Parker, actually slightly younger. Now, it was much harder to track him down because I only had a Dr. DeWitt, and I didn't have his first name or where he's from. I found a couple ads that actually give his initials of J.W. DeWitt. It took some digging, but I did find that he's from Delaware. And the first time we see him show up in the papers is 1878, just like the Parker ads earlier. And these ads are for Dr. DeWitt's pile remedy, which we learned in earlier videos that piles were hemorrhoids. And honestly, I don't know which name is worse. The bottom of these ads has a Jacob Waltz as the purveyor of this medicine. And there were several of these ads. And I found a quick snippet in 1881 noting that Dr. DeWitt was tending to patients with various diseases. 1884, DeWitt was chosen chairman of the school board. In 1885, he's re-elected president for a 3rd term of, it looks like city council. In 1891, he's tending to someone with la grippe, which is the flu. In 1897, this one's gross. A 12-year-old boy was leading a horse out of the stable when he stumbled and fell. He frightened the horse, and the horse took off running, but the kid had his thumb wrapped up in the halter, and when the horse took off, he took his thumb with him, ripped it right off. Dr. DeWitt came over and operated on it, and it says that the boy is doing as well as could be expected. I couldn't find any more information on that boy, though. So in 1900, DeWitt and his wife and a niece lived together, and in April, a small fire started at his house when an oil stove was dropped while they were moving it from one room to the other. And in June that year, he was elected school commissioner. Now this one's weird. In 1903, a Saturday night, this is in January, some people went ice skating on the frozen pond, and it says Wilson Jester, while skating, ran into Samuel Ponzo, colored, who immediately drew a razor from his pocket and cut him across the wrist, making a deep gash, which Dr. DeWitt needed to stitch up. At a hearing on Monday, Ponzo was fined $10. In 1910, this mentions that Dr. DeWitt was the president of the State Board of Health. John DeWitt died in January 1911, and he was 70. His obituary says that during the Civil War, he served as assistant surgeon of Company M, 17th Pennsylvania Cavalry, from 1863 to 1865. He was buried with military honors at Arlington Cemetery. No mention of him coming up with remedies, and certainly no mention of him selling anything. So it could have been something he came up with, or Maybe some of these medicines just use his name because he was a well-known doctor. Or maybe it was just in honor of him. I'm really not sure. So for my particular bottle, this particular name, cough and consumption cure, looks like it was only used for 3 years, 1887, 88, and 89. Then it looks like after that they changed the name of it but kept the same formula. So I could see this bottle fitting perfectly in that 1887, 88, 89 time frame. Just look at the lip. And look at those awesome bubbles. That's a really long bubble right there. That's actually not a crack or something. That's a long bubble. And look at all those little tiny, tiny bubbles. Okay, well that's all I've got for this one. You know, I love that we all have a story. We can't all be famous, but we all have some interesting details nonetheless. Anyways, we'll see you on the next one. Thanks for watching, guys.